When Ford launched the Mustang in 1964, they didn't just create a car, they created an entirely new segment, the pony car. But that roaring success also stirred up a wave of rivalry, not just from outside Ford, but from within the Ford Motor Company itself. The Lincoln Mercury division, known for its focus on luxury, didn't want to be left behind. They needed a steed of their own, something different, premium, and definitely not a cheap imitation of the Mustang. And so, the 1967 Mercury Cougar was born. Not loud, not showy, but with enough presence to make people turn their heads. A car elegantly designed down to every detail, smartly equipped, powerfully built, and one that even led to a historic lawsuit from Jaguar, all over a logo. After the runaway success of the 1964 Mustang, a car that sold over 1 million units in just a few years, it wasn't just Chevy or Pontiac that felt the pressure. Even inside Ford Motor Company, heads were turning. Up in the executive floors of Lincoln Mercury, Ford's more upscale division, there was a clear message: we want in, but on our terms. They didn't want a cheaper copy of the Mustang. They wanted a car with character, with presence, with a sense of identity that stood apart. And that's exactly what they set out to build. The result was the 1967 Mercury Cougar, a new kind of pony car, still sporty, still fast. It didn't just chase after the Mustang, it walked its own path, a little longer, a little quieter, a lot more grown up. At first glance, some folks thought the Cougar was just a Mustang in a tuxedo. Same bones, right? Same engines, same rear-wheel drive. But the truth is, this car had its own soul. Start with the size. The 1967 Mustang rode on a 108-inch wheelbase. The Cougar, 111 inches. That's 3 inches longer between the wheels, which may not sound like much, but on the road, it made a world of difference. The Cougar measured just over 190 inches in total length, making it 7 inches longer than its stablemate, and it tipped the scales nearly 200 pounds heavier. That added weight and length translated into a calmer, more planted ride. Where the Mustang darted, the Cougar glided. Then there's the exterior. The Cougar's razor-thin grille stretched across the full width of the car, hiding a pair of pop-up headlights, a rare and upscale feature back then. When switched on, the headlamp doors opened slowly and dramatically, giving the car an almost feline stare. Out back, sequential taillights blinked in 3 stages, left to right or right to left, echoing the design of the Thunderbird. These weren't just gimmicks. They were thoughtful touches meant to elevate the entire driving experience. The body lines were just as refined. While the Mustang sported creases, scoops, and youthful aggression, the Cougar favored flowing contours and a single, clean character line that ran gracefully from front to rear. From certain angles, it didn't just resemble an American muscle car. It called to mind the lines of a Jaguar E-Type, or even an early Maserati Tourer. And that European influence continued inside. Even in its base trim, the Cougar came with bucket seats, a unique dashboard layout, and upscale materials that gave it an air of quiet sophistication. But if you stepped up to the XR7 package, that's where things really got interesting. The XR7 wasn't about flash, it was about finesse. A wood-trimmed 3-spoke steering wheel greeted the driver. The dash featured faux wood applique, and the gauge cluster wasn't just speed and fuel. It included a tachometer, voltage gauge, and engine temperature readout, all styled in a way that felt more like something from Modena than Dearborn. Overhead, a console with courtesy lights and warning indicators added a touch of high-end flair, rarely seen in this segment. Slide into the driver's seat, and the Cougar didn't feel like a muscle car. It felt like a grand touring coupe. Quiet, smooth, measured. Not a car for burnouts at stoplights. A car for cruising long distances, in style, without breaking a sweat. For all its smooth lines and quiet confidence, the Mercury Cougar was never just a pretty face. Beneath that gentlemanly exterior beat the heart of a proper American muscle car, one that could be as tame or as wild as the driver wanted. At its core, the base Cougar came equipped with a 289 cubic inch V8, borrowed from the Windsor engine family. With a 2-barrel carburetor, it delivered a modest 200 horsepower, plenty for daily driving, light cruising, and the occasional punch off the line. More importantly, it delivered that power smoothly. This wasn't a twitchy, temperamental mill. It was refined, quiet, and predictable, perfect for the buyer who valued comfort over chaos. But for those who wanted a little more edge, Mercury had them covered. Buyers could opt for a 4-barrel version of that same 289, bumping output to 225 horsepower. The difference wasn't just in numbers. It sharpened throttle response, gave better mid-range pull, and made the Cougar feel more alive without ever losing its sense of civility. Still not enough? Enter the Cougar GT. This wasn't just a trim package, it was a transformation. Under the hood sat the 390 cubic inch Marauder Phi 8, an engine that made 320 horsepower and gave the Cougar a whole new attitude. With that much torque on tap, the GT could hustle with the best of them, taking on GTOs, Chargers, and 442s with surprising confidence. And it wasn't just about the engine. The GT package added a dual exhaust system with low restriction, which gave the car a deeper growl and let the big V8 breathe freely. Front disc brakes came standard, along with upgraded suspension, performance-tuned springs and shocks, thicker sway bars, and a quick ratio power steering setup that gave the Cougar a tighter, more responsive feel in corners. It was everything a muscle car fan could want, without sacrificing Mercury's signature refinement. What made the Cougar special wasn't just that it offered power, it was the way it delivered it. Whether you were in the base 289 or the thumping 390, the experience was always composed. There was less road noise, less vibration, and more of that sewing machine smoothness that Mercury engineers took pride in. Where other pony cars shouted for attention, the Cougar simply showed up, strong, confident, and effortlessly in control. It was the kind of car that could cruise the highway all day without breaking a sweat, yet still put a smile on your face when you rolled into the throttle. A machine for those who had moved past the burnout stage, but still wanted to feel a little rumble under their right foot. When Mercury introduced the Cougar in 1967, expectations were measured. It was, after all, a brand new model. The company hoped to sell around 60,000 units in its first year. Respectable numbers for a car that was neither the fastest nor the flashiest in the pony car race. But what happened next surprised everyone, including Mercury. By the time the dust settled, 151,000 Cougars had rolled off dealer lots. That wasn't just a win. That was a market shakeup. More than 2.5 times Mercury's sales projections, and enough to make the Cougar the best-selling model in Mercury's history up to that point. And this wasn't just a case of folks grabbing the cheapest trim. The XR7, Cougar's premium, European-inspired package, proved to be a smash hit on its own. Nearly 27,000 buyers, almost 1 in 5, opted for the fancier model. That told Mercury something loud and clear. American buyers were ready to pay more for refinement. They didn't just want a fast car, they wanted a grown-up pony car, something that looked good at the country club and felt just right on a cross-state drive. The numbers didn't stop there. More than 7,400 buyers chose the GT Performance Package, the version with the 390 V8, upgraded suspension, dual exhausts, and disc brakes. That meant thousands of people didn't just want luxury. They also wanted to feel the road rumble under their feet. In a segment often dominated by teenagers and 20-somethings chasing tire smoke, the Cougar proved there was a strong market for something more mature, more subtle, and more self-assured. What Mercury had built wasn't just a response to the Mustang, it was a redefinition of what a pony car could be. And its success wasn't a fluke. It reflected a cultural moment when a new class of drivers was coming of age. Vietnam veterans coming home, young professionals starting families, drivers who still loved horsepower but had traded in drag races for long weekends and winding highways. The Cougar gave them exactly what they didn't know they needed. A car that didn't scream for attention, but still got it. A car that wasn't built to be the loudest on the block, but just might have been the smartest buy in the lot. For Mercury, the Cougar wasn't just a strong debut. It was a message to the industry. Style and substance could share the same badge. By late 1967, across the Atlantic, one particular company was watching with growing discomfort. That company? Jaguar. You see, from the very beginning, every Cougar came with a unique front-end design. On the passenger side headlamp door sat an emblem, a bold, stylized image of a large cat in a crouching, predatory stance, ready to pounce. Next to it, the word COUGAR in block letters. It was clean, striking, sophisticated, and it looked familiar. Too familiar, at least for Jaguar. The British automaker, proud of its leaping cat logo, an icon of elegance and performance, filed a lawsuit against Ford. Their claim? The Cougar's emblem bore too strong a resemblance to Jaguar's branding and could confuse customers, especially those shopping in the premium space. Now, on the surface, this might seem like a small squabble over a chrome badge, but to Jaguar, this was personal, and to Ford, it was unexpected. Surprisingly, Jaguar won. The ruling didn't force Mercury to abandon the Cougar's cat emblem entirely, but it did require Ford to make one very specific change. The word Cougar had to remain clearly displayed beneath or alongside the image at all times. That way, no one could mistake this American feline for a British one. But here's where the story gets interesting. Instead of hurting the Cougar's image, the lawsuit had the opposite effect. It added a layer of mystique, a sense of quiet prestige. After all, when a Jaguar complains you look too much like a Jaguar, that's not a weakness, it's a compliment. To American buyers, it reinforced everything Mercury had been aiming for. That the Cougar wasn't just another pony car. It wasn't trying to outshout the Mustang or outmuscle the Charger. It was playing a different game. Refinement, poise, and yes, a touch of European flair. The car world took notice. Suddenly, the Cougar wasn't just being compared to other Fords or domestic rivals, it was being whispered about, in the same breath as E-Types, Maseratis, and Aston Martins. For a pony car, that was unheard of. And to the men who drove them, professionals, veterans, thinkers, doers, it meant something. The Cougar could stand toe-to-toe with imports in the driveway and feel right at home. In the end, that little cat badge didn't just identify a model, it started a conversation. A conversation that placed the Cougar exactly where Mercury always wanted it, in a class of its own. The Mercury Cougar didn't need to burn rubber, shake the pavement, or shout for attention. It simply spoke in a low voice, and the world listened. In an era where most cars proved themselves with noise and speed, the Cougar chose grace, and in doing so, carved out its own legacy. How about you? Ever seen a Cougar in the wild? Maybe you drove one, or still remember the way it looked parked under the streetlight. We'd love to hear your story. Drop it in the comments below, because old cars aren't just machines, they're memories, and those memories deserve to be shared. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button to support the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell. There are plenty more forgotten legends waiting to come back to life. We'll see you in the next one, where history, horsepower, and heart ride together.